Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Pitchside Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Before everything, like, share, comment on the video version of this, subscribe to YouTube channel, of course, enable notification to receive more episodes and videos from the channel. Follow us on social media at SidePSP on Twitter and at PitchsidePod on Instagram, and listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. It was all about the derbies yesterday. Aside from the derbies, really, it's an eventful Saturday. We'll get to the other leagues later, of course, but all about the derbies in both Madrid and Manchester, as Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid battle it out, as well as Manchester United versus Manchester City. And let's start from Spain. Actually, we'll start from the Spanish derby, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, but not before, of course, a couple of other matches. On the kickoff in Saturday, Valencia drawn level with Atletico Bilbao 2-2 in a game that witnessed two penalties being taken by each side. Of course, Carlos Soler scoring in the 26th minute, opening the scoreline for Valencia early on, before Libre equalises in the 55th minute. A 79th minute penalty for Ruben Garcia almost clinched the winner for Athletic Bilbao, only for Vallejo to score the winner after an assist, of course, from Carlos Soler as well in the 83rd minute to share the points between Valencia and Athletic Bilbao in the table. Then after that, of course, Getafe Sevilla with another save in the dying moments. Of this time, an own goal gave them the 3 points, the all-important 3 points for Julian Lopetegui's boys after the loss against Real Madrid last week. They probably needed that boost wherever it came from, whether it be an own goal or their own doing. They will not really care. They will take the 3 points from wherever they came. Really, Huesca, aka Mr. Draws, finally actually got a win in the table. Really, in an incredible event, they get a win over Alaves. Scored by Ontiveros in the 66th minute. They actually had a pretty good game for all they got. They really showed up for it. However, it didn't change their status on the table too much. They're still down with 11 points, just above Osasuna, of course, we're going to be playing today. Then we had, of course, the derby, the Real Madrid versus Atletico Madrid derby, and this was interesting for a whole lot of reasons, of course. As I mentioned in the review, Real Madrid got out of the other side of the week pretty unscathed, really, considering how crucial this week was for Zinedine Zidane for Real Madrid. He chose to start with the normal, sort of normal at the moment back four. Carvajal, of course, returning to the side, a very welcome addition. I think Lucas Vazquez, right back, has been, despite having, a couple of solid performances as of late against Mönchengladbach and against Sevilla, but it was more of the ineffectiveness of the opponents rather than him being a good right back. Lucas Vazquez all day long cannot be a defensive right back. We can all agree on this one. Zidane started with the normal four in the back: Carvajal, Varane, who gained his confidence back with Ramos returning after really a shaky season so far, without his captain. Mendy on the left-hand side, Modric starting alongside Casemiro, and Kroos, the typical midfield for the last 5 or 6 years in Real Madrid, and Lucas Vazquez, of course, moving upwards. I thought maybe he should have started with Rodrigo up front and Benzema alongside Vinicius Jr. from the right-hand side. For Atletico Madrid was a 3-5-2, of course, the new sort of hybrid 3-5-2, depending on the situation. In the attack, it becomes almost 4-5-1, really. Kieran Trippier, of course, and Carrasco being the wingers. Koke playing with Llorente and Herrera. Llorente, who normally is the winger, normally is the right winger. He was moved more into a central position. Savic, Felipe and Hermoso in the back. Oblak behind them, and João Felix with Luis Suarez, who his COVID test came negative only the day of the match, only yesterday, so he wasn't really that fit, and you could see it on him on the pitch. He didn't care. He couldn't run on the field. He couldn't really do anything of note. He couldn't give anything as an addition to the side. The game started pretty quick for Real Madrid. They really started on the strong foot. They knew that this is the match that will probably define their season of how it's going to be going. They started super strong. They pressed Atletico Madrid. They had a strong chance for Karim Benzema hitting the upright around 10 minutes, really threatening to open the scoreline. Inside 15 minutes, a corner. Bad set-piece marking from Atletico Madrid. It was really ridiculous. I said that in the review. You can check it out, of course. It was really bad marking from the set-piece for Atletico Madrid. 3 players were alongside Casemiro, yet no one took the ball off him. A header in the near post. 1-0 for Real Madrid. And from there, I think the tempo was set for the game. It was Atletico Madrid not attacking necessarily Real Madrid, but possessing, having more of the ball, really rolling it around, having more of the passes, controlling the tempo of the game, controlling the midfield, with Atletico Madrid having, far and few chances in between, really, to make anything happen of notes. Real Madrid, for all of their possession, they didn't have strong chances to show forward, really. They didn't hit, the gear that we expected them to hit after scoring the goal. And they ended the first half on a really, sort of controlling note, but not that dangerous. They were still looking, of course, for the knockout punch. In the second half, Simeone probably knew that he should do something about his game, so he took out 3 players at once. Really, he took out Herrera, Hector Herrera, not Ander Herrera. He took out Yannick Carrasco. He took out Felipe, and he moved on into a 4-2-3-1 formation, of course, with Thomas Lemar coming in, Angel Correa coming in, Saul coming in as well, Renan Lodi coming in, but. He played better. His side played better, at least for the first 10 minutes in the second half, and they missed a big chance from Thomas Lemar. A close range, at point-blank range, really. He should have scored that. It's not just like 2-3 yards from the goal. He missed it. He side-netted it. Probably, if he scored that chance, maybe we would be talking about a different game right now. But he missed it. 10 minutes later, Real Madrid, beautiful goal, by the way, for Dani Carvajal, chests it down and just rifles it into the bottom corner, hits the post off the back of Oblak and into the net. The goal was claimed as an own goal for Oblak, but I don't want to discount the effort, really, from Carvajal, who did the technique. It was sublime, really. He can hit those sometimes, Dani Carvajal, doesn't he? He has that kind of technique. The game afterwards, game management from Zidane versus scrambling to do anything of sorts for Simeone. He took Suarez out, of course, as I mentioned earlier. He couldn't run. By 70 minutes, he was really tired, really exhausted. He couldn't have anything left in the tank. He couldn't run for his life, really. The guy wasn't fit. Angel Correa, in my opinion, should have started early on. He should have came on early, or should at least started the game, in my opinion, really. You're not having any kind of speed in that attack to threaten, the defense of Real Madrid. You didn't play on Rafael Varane, knowing that he could be shaky. You couldn't play on his side, really. Saul Niguez came on later, as I mentioned, and he actually made Atletico Madrid a little bit more alive than they had. In the last 15 minutes or so, they tried to create certain chances. They had one big chance that Courtois saved right on the line, and that was all Courtois' contribution to the game, just that one big save in the 9 minutes. Overall, Zinedine Zidane saw the game off. They didn't need to, to exhaust themselves to a lunatic extent. They didn't have to run riot. Physically, they dropped a little bit. In the end, of course, a week of big games, finally getting off and catching up with the Real Madrid players. They dropped in the physicality. They dropped in the stamina. They couldn't do more, but I think that they did enough. And they did enough. And Atletico Madrid, if they played for extra 2 hours, probably they wouldn't score. They wouldn't really do any kind of thing of notes, really. But big 3 points for Real Madrid, despite the fact that they're still behind in the table. They're still like 3 points behind Atletico Madrid, and also they still lacking, like Real Madrid are 2 matches less than than the rest of the teams, and 1 match less than Real Madrid. So you'd expect them to win their left games. Of course, they have a game against Elche, a game against Sevilla, which they still didn't play. So you expect them, if they win both of those games, they will be quite far in the table. You'd expect, if Real Sociedad cannot win on Sunday. So big important win for Real Madrid. Zinedine Zidane not just saved his job, but I think turned things around. Did he find the blueprint now? Is this a blueprint for the turnaround for Real Madrid? We'll wait and see, we don't know. Can we expect Real Madrid to change this season after this? Yes, we should expect them to change. We expect them to move along now into a good direction, into the right direction, because their season hasn't been going in the best, in the best way so far. And this is the time of the year where Real Madrid change, really, around the time that we leave the group stage of the Champions League and we start talking knockout rounds and big events, really, for Real Madrid. That's all I could say, really. It was a one-side game for all it matters. It was an all, Real Madrid dominated, scored 2 goals. They looked comfortable. They didn't look that vulnerable, even when Atletico Madrid started getting more possession and going more forward. 3 important points for Zidane. 3 victories in a row in 1 week. 3 clean sheets. That's the most important thing, considering that Real Madrid have been finding the fact to have clean sheets a little bit hard this season, but they did it, and they made it again, another victory with another clean sheet. Kudos to Zinedine Zidane, of course. The 13th round of LaLiga still continues, of course, today and tomorrow. Real Sociedad hosts Eibar, Real Betis hosts Villarreal, Elche hosts Granada, Barcelona, after the loss against Cadiz, we'll see what they do against Levante. And on Monday, Celta Vigo faces the side that beat Barcelona in Cadiz. Moving on to the other important derby, of course, on Saturday, and it was in Manchester now, in the Premier League, between Manchester United and Manchester City. But before that derby, of course, Wolves lost to Aston Villa at home 1-0. It was an important win, I think, for Aston Villa, of course, considering the form that they have been in the last couple of weeks, losing against Brighton, losing against West Ham. They didn't have the best of outings as of late. A big important victory for Wolves, against Wolves, despite the fact that they were 1 man down for most of the second half, for the latest part of the second half, really. The penalty scored by Anwar El Ghazi, drawn out by John McGinn, made the difference, of course, the one difference between Aston Villa and Wolves for the victory. Newcastle United defeated West Bromwich 2-1, expectedly really defeated them, but it was a little bit harder than it looked for Newcastle, as they needed an 82nd minute goal to save them. In the late kickoff, Chelsea's run of victories, Chelsea's undefeated run of sorts, stopped at the hands of Everton, of course. 1-0 victory for Everton in a game where Chelsea did everything to win, but they couldn't really. They attacked, they dominated, they had chances, but they couldn't score them. A penalty, it's not a contentious penalty, it was a smart penalty from Calvert-Lewin. If you watched it, he really nicked the ball from Edward Mendy at the right moment, at the right time, to catch him off guard and make the referee instantly convinced that it is a penalty for Everton. Gylfi Sigurdsson turned it on and converted the penalty successfully. 1-0 victory for Everton. An important victory for Carlo Ancelotti, an important victory that will bring their side to the right track, really, after probably a couple of wobbly weeks where everyone seemed to drop Everton out of their calculations for the season. Now we're back to the derby, of course, to Manchester United, Manchester City derby. This was a dull game. I'll probably repeat myself here. I said it in the review yesterday. I'll probably look like a broken record here, but it was a dull game as dull game could get. Man United started with a 4-3-3. Pretty much they mirrored what Leipzig tried to do for them in the Champions League in terms of how they play, of how the block was, disposed on the pitch and what have you. At Manchester City, a 4-2-3-1. With Rodri and Fernandinho, knowing that his midfield needs more of solidity. He played with double pivot, started with Rodri and Fernandinho. Manchester United, though, made it really hard for Manchester City to play, to find space, really. They forced him to play too wide at certain points. De Bruyne didn't find the spaces that he wants in the midfield to play the passes. Fred and Scott McTominay, I thought, were brilliant. Trying to stop him, he was incredible. He was really doing really a good job, a solid job from Fred and McTominay. Pogba, who started, everyone thought, okay, Pogba's not going to be starting after the problems that he has with the agent, the statements that he put on. Maybe he wouldn't be starting. Maybe he would drop out of favour for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. No, he didn't. He started against Manchester City. And he was really good. He was defending well for all the criticism that he gets for not defending. He did a good job, defending the left-hand side of Manchester United's defence alongside Luke Shaw, knowing that Riyad Mahrez could be really dangerous from there. Paul Pogba worked, pretty well to defend in the game. Manchester City didn't have loads of chances. In fact, they only had one notable chance in the first half, which is Riyad Mahrez, finding himself one-on-one with David De Gea, only for De Gea to pull the save when it needed. That was about the only time that Kevin De Bruyne could find any space in the midfield to pass to any of his teammates. So overall, the first half, of course, of the Manchester Derby didn't exactly reach the heights we expected, of course. It was a poised half. Manchester United didn't do a lot. Manchester City also didn't do a lot of things, really. And you could apply the same thing to the second half. No substitutions at halftime from either managers. Manchester United started a little bit better. They started on the more attacking side of things in the first 10 minutes or so. They found a couple of good situations behind the Manchester City defenders, really, who were overcommitting at certain points going forward. They left themselves pretty open in the back. Marcus Rashford, drawn a penalty. It was a rightful penalty, but only for the offside. And a look at the VAR to chalk it off. The offside on the build-up on Marcus Rashford. After the 1-0 mark, really, the game settled to a pattern. It was declared that Manchester City were the attacking side and Man United would be the defensive side of things. One substitution was made by each coach, which is weird, really. Ferran Torres coming in for Mahrez with no real additional venom into his game. Also, Anthony Martial coming from the other side for Mason Greenwood, no rhythm or addition as well to the game. Manchester City didn't create a lot of chances as well in the second half, although they were, having more possession, trying to penetrate through the wings, but they couldn't really do anything of note. Man United just stayed compact in the middle, and they dealt with everything that Manchester City threw at them. Overall, by the last 10 minutes, 5 minutes of the game, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer gave up, really. He thought better of trying to snatch anything out of this game. He was convinced that the draw would do him good. It also seems at certain points like Guardiola maybe was convinced also with the draw, considering that they had a problem keeping clean sheets as well for the most of the season so far. Overall, a dull derby, a draw that won't help anyone. Probably, as I mentioned in the review of the match, it will only help Ole Gunnar Solskjaer stay a little bit more at the helm at United. Will it convince the board that he still has life at the club? I don't know, but in my opinion, we'll wait and see, really. He kept his job pretty intact at the moment. We don't know what could happen in the next couple of weeks or maybe months from now. Another bad result at home for Man United, actually. It is not a good result. It is not a good result at home for Man United. I mean, their home and away form is pretty contrasted when you look at them. 5 points from home fixtures in 6 games, while from away fixtures They have 15 points from 5 games. It is just day and night between their performances away from home and their performances at home. Yes, it's not the same when you have no fans to really judge the home and away effect, but overall, it's an important draw from a sense that they will take the clean sheet. Of course, they will take the point. They will take the fact that they still above Manchester City in the table, but both of them dropped, of course, because of Everton's win. 20 for Everton, 20 for Man United, but they are 8th, and Manchester City with 9th, 19 points. Premier League fixtures still to continue, of course, today. Southampton, I think, have an easy task in hand, really, to jump into the top 4 and even get closer to even a third place potentially, over jumping Chelsea in third with 1 point difference if they defeat Sheffield United, which is expected. Really, Sheffield United are so hapless at the moment at the bottom of the table. Crystal Palace host Tottenham in another derby, a London derby this time. It's a hard game for Tottenham Hotspur. Fulham host Liverpool. Again, in a game that Liverpool, you'd expect them to win. The injury for Diogo Jota, don't know how serious it is. Maybe it will deprive him of another player for the whole season, which is going to be bad news for Jurgen Klopp. Leicester City hosts Brighton in a game you'd expect Leicester to win as well. Despite the fact that Brighton are really, really good and quite underrated as a side this season in the Premier League. Arsenal host Burnley in a game and surprisingly enough, Arsenal are 15th, Burnley are 18th on the table. The table might tell you, the point difference might tell you that, Arsenal are quite away from Burnley, but the performances really do not, say the same story. It feels at the moment that Arsenal are a relegation side because of how bad they could perform sometimes. That's all for the Premier League. And moving on now to the Bundesliga, where Saturday was probably the day of the fall of the big boys. That's what I could call it, really. It started with Borussia Mönchengladbach drawing at home to Hertha Berlin. Another bad result for Borussia Mönchengladbach. The loss to Real Madrid. Before that, a draw to Freiburg, a draw to Bayer Leverkusen. Their only win in the last 4 games was against Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League. Of course, the loss to Inter in between at home as well. You extend that to the last 5 or 6 games, really. A horrible form for a side that we expected a lot of this season, especially after that good start in the Champions League campaign. We all thought that, okay, maybe we're going to get, a little bit of a, solid form now that they qualified at the Champions League round of 16. But no, again, they saved themselves late on in the second half with Beryl Mbolo's equaliser in the 70th minute after a brilliant goal from Arsenal loanee Matteo Guendouzi for Hertha Berlin. 1 point for each side, of course. The point that would do no good for Borussia Mönchengladbach, really. It would only regress them more in the table, of course, by 17 points at 8th, while their opponents are sitting, pretty low at 11th, 12 points for Hertha Berlin. Another big boy that fell yesterday, and it was a big fall, really, for Borussia Dortmund. Coming off a hard win against Zenit in the Champions League, they really dropped and fell down really hard against Stuttgart, losing 5-1 at the Signal Iduna Park. The first half was pretty balanced, really. It started, pretty well. A penalty for Stuttgart converted by Silas Mangetuka, one of the best players at the moment in the Bundesliga as it stands, really. He is the 4th top goal scorer, 7 goals for Silas Mangetuka. He's incredible this season for Stuttgart. The first half ended 1-1. As I mentioned, a penalty for Silas Mangetuka converted, then Giovanni Reina with a superb finish, equalising at the 39th minute. Very, very brilliant after the pass from Rafael Guerrero. And then the second half, of course, it was the first quarter of an hour was complete capitulation for Dortmund as they conceded 3 goals in the first 15 minutes. Silaswa Mangituka coming in with the second goal, of course. Then Forster with the third goal from a complete defensive horror show. Mismarking really, and in spaces were, very, very wide for the Stuttgart players to move into. Tanguy Koulibaly scoring the fourth goal with an assist of Silaswa Mangituka. Of course, after that, Borussia Dortmund just went forward, looking for the comeback, to return to the game in some sorts. But the only thing they managed is this allowed goal for Giovanni Reina, chalked off by VAR for offside. And in the 91st minute, their misery was compounded. A counter-attack that found no Borussia Dortmund defenders in its way. Ended up in the fifth goal for Stuttgart. Complete capitulation this is for Dortmund. I don't know how Lucien Favre will stay after this. I don't know how long could he stay, how the board of the club could take it any longer with the side not having the best results that they can. The third game in a row in the Bundesliga where they don't win, the second loss out of 3 games. It doesn't look well for Dortmund, doesn't it? I mean, when they lost to Köln, we already said that they will probably have a hard season where they don't quite reach their potential yet, but I don't think we expected it to be to this point, really, where they're really having a horrible couple of weeks in the Bundesliga. I mean, the Haaland absence shouldn't be affecting them to this point, because at first we thought, okay, it's a problem in Haaland, but when you concede 5 at home, you probably should look at your defence a little bit with more care. Elsewhere, of course, in the Bundesliga, Freiburg defeated the newly promoted Arminia Bielefeld 2-0. Mainz lost to FC Köln 1-0 at home. A 10-man FC Köln, I would say. RB Leipzig proved their worth this season, still continuing on that momentum from qualifying to the Champions League round of 16, defeating Werder Bremen 2-0, the goals coming in from a penalty from Sabitzer, Dani Olmo in the first half, settling the deal for RB Leipzig. And in the big game, the champions Bayern Munich, it was a struggle against Union Berlin. I expected it personally as a Bayern fan to be a struggle of a game, but not to that extent. Union Berlin started very, very strong, straight off the bat, capitalising on the high line for Bayern, scoring since the 3rd minute, and from then onwards, they actually continued to press Bayern a little bit more. In the first half, Bayern looked very, very woozy, very wobbly. They didn't really have a lot to show for it in the first half. 4 shots on goal Union Berlin had in that first half. Then in the second half, things obviously turned around. The substitutions for Bayern, of course, were needed. Leroy Sané coming in for Jamal Musiala, who I didn't think should have started. I thought probably Mark Roca should have started alongside Goretzka in that midfield. Sané coming on, giving a little bit of movement for Bayern Munich. Lewandowski, of course, coming in with the goods, equalising for Bayern Munich, and that was that for the game. Union Berlin managed to defend really well from that point onward, denying Bayern any kind of chance to score and to grab a winner. A draw that will keep Bayern at the top of the table, but barely, by the fact that there's the goal difference ahead of them, compared to RB Leipzig. Bayern Leverkusen have a big chance to jump both of them today when they play Hoffenheim. But for Bayern, it's a bad form, considering a team that they call the best in the world at the moment. This is a dip in the form. 3 draws in the last 4. They're not really doing well. It looks at the moment they're pretty shaky. This is the dull period for Bayern Munich, isn't it? This is the dull period for Bayern Munich. They probably need a little bit of a rest, maybe. Rotation certainly will be needed. Missing the presence of Kimmich in the midfield is certainly affecting, the Bayern Munich. They need to restore their strength really, really well. It looks like, the players are hitting quite a dud at the moment. Some of the players are not performing that well, maybe. And again, probably it's all about that midfield. The defensive aspect of Bayern Munich still needs some work for all their strength up front. I think the defensive aspect of the game still needs some work. The highlight, even with the return of Davis, still causing a lot of problems for Bayern Munich overall. The Bundesliga fixtures still continue today, of course, 2 matches. Augsburg face a hapless Schalke, and I'm sorry for the Schalke fans, but I can't really expect anything other than a Schalke loss at the moment, considering how bad the situation is overall in that club. Bayer Leverkusen, as you mentioned, big chance to overleap both Leipzig and Bayern Munich at the top and go top of the table if they defeat Hoffenheim today. That's all for the Bundesliga action. And quickly, of course, finally rounding off our Saturday review with the Serie A. Of course, Crotone defeated Spezia 4-1 in a bottom of the table game. Torino lost again, and to Udinese 3-2. Crazy game that was. 3 goals in 3 minutes. In that game, 2 from Torino, but 1 from Udinese, and that one proved to be the winner as they managed a 3-2 victory away from home at Turin. That victory would keep Torino down at 19th, 6 points, while Udinese move up to 10th with 13 points on the table. Crotone versus Spezia, as I mentioned, Crotone defeating Spezia 4-1, but the victory would not really do a lot for Crotone. They're still bottom of the table. For Spezia, they dropped to 16th with 10 points. Lazio, after barely surviving, in my opinion, through Club Brugge in the Champions League, they lost to Verona. In my opinion, one of the best sides at the moment in the Serie A. The surprise package, as I mentioned, in this league. Verona 6th now with 19 points, defeated Lazio away from home at the Olimpico 2-1, capitalising on some defensive mistakes, an own goal for the opener, and then a giveaway from Stefan Radu for the second goal for Verona. Of course, Felipe Caicedo, in between, scoring a beautiful goal to equalise for Lazio, but it only turned out that it was a false dawn in the 67th minute. Temeze, as we mentioned, capitalised on the giveaway from Stefan Radu to score the second goal and give Verona the all-important win on Saturday. Verona, as I mentioned, 6th at 19th, 17th for Lazio at 8th. This is a good season. It looks like a good season, really, in the Serie A. Verona, second strongest defence in the league. They're really doing well at the moment. Ivan Juric's side are performing on a good level at the moment. The rest of the fixtures of Serie A this week, of course, on Sunday, of course, Cagliari host Inter Milan. We will see how Inter are going to be, dealing, with their grief, sort of, after the exit of the Champions League. Napoli hosting Sampdoria, Bologna hosting AS Roma, Atalanta hosting Fiorentina, interesting game for them as well after qualifying. In the Champions League, Genoa hosting Juventus and AC Milan hosting Parma. At the moment, of course, the other game, Sassuolo, of course, managed a 1-0 victory over Benevento. That was on Friday before all the games concluded on Saturday. That's all for the review of the week, for the Saturday, of course. Like, comment, share the video, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates of the podcast and the other videos on this channel. Follow us on social media at PitchsidePod, on Instagram at SouthBSP, on Twitter. Listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you can get your podcasts from. I was your boy, the HOD with the PSP, and until I see you tomorrow, goodbye.